couple of other classes are already passed where I recorded the last video. Yours and 6th are the only ones that are back other than military science. So yeah, I'm gonna record this one. If I don't feel like it goes well, I'll record 6th too, and then we'll have something I can post. How many of you all have ever missed a class day and you went to the tracker that day or the next day and were able to kind of catch up, and whether it be the reading or whether it be the work? Okay, so that encourages me to keep doing it. The tracker was a this year invention for me. I'd never done the tracker before, and I've really found it valuable, I think, for you all, but it's been helpful for me. It's like, wait a minute, what did we do last week? You know, sometimes I forget. Yes. We are on page 72, and the last words were "for example." Okay? So Captain Frankel was just explaining to poor Hendrik, who doesn't seem to understand what's going on. The extra conversations can stop. He's explaining to him that he could have done much worse than just lay his hands on you. He could have done much worse than knock you down. If it were real, this was simulated combat, right? If it were real, he might have killed you to stop you from drawing attention to them, but from the enemy or whatever it is. So we actually looked up that word, pusillanimous. Pusillanimous. There we go. Pusillanimous. And it means like they're doing something foolish, like dangerous foolish. Or, depending on the usage, it could be cowardly, like a cowardly act. So in a military setting, that could be dangerous, right? So the captain tapped on his desk. Now, about those batons, remember he'd complained about the batons being used? They have 2 uses. First, they mark the men in authority. Second, we expect them to be used on you to touch you up and keep you on the bounce. You can't possibly be hurt by one, not the way they're used. At most, they sting a little. They save thousands of words. Have you ever heard that actions speak louder than words? Say you don't turn out on the bounce at reveille. No doubt the duty corporal could wheedle you, say, "Pretty please with sugar on top." Inquire if you'd like breakfast in bed this morning. If we could spare one career corporal just to nursemaid you. We can't. So he gives your bedroll a whack and trots on down the line, applying the spur where needed. Of course, he could simply kick you, which would be just as legal and nearly as effective, but the general in charge of training and discipline thinks that it is more dignified, both for the duty corporal and for you, to snap a late sleeper out of his fog with the impersonal rod of authority. And so do I. Not that it matters what you or I think about it. This is the way we do it. Captain Frankel sighed. Hendrik, I have explained these matters to you because it is useless to punish a man unless he knows why he is being punished. You've been a bad boy. I say boy because you're quite evidently not a man yet. Although we'll keep trying. A surprisingly bad boy in view of the stage of your training. Guys, he's saying, you've been in training long enough, you should have known better. Nothing you have said is any defense, nor even any mitigation. You don't seem to know the score, nor have any idea of your duty as a soldier. So tell me, in your own words, why you feel mistreated. I want to get you straightened out. There might even be something in your favor, though I confess that I cannot imagine what it could be. I had sneaked a look or two at Hendrik's face while the captain was chewing them out. Somehow his quiet, mild words were a worse chewing out than any Zim had ever given us. Hendrik's expression had gone from indignation to blank astonishment and sullenness. Speak up, Frankel added sharply. Well, we were ordered to freeze, and I hit the dirt, and I found I was on this ant hill. So I got to my knees to move over a couple of feet, and I was hit from behind and knocked flat, and he yelled at me, and I bounced up and popped him one, and he, stop! Captain Frankel was out of his chair and standing 10 feet tall, though he's hardly taller than I am. He stared at Hendrik. You struck your company commander? Huh? I said so, but he hit me first. From behind, I didn't even see him. I don't take that off anybody. I popped him, and then he hit me again, and then silence. Hendrik stopped. Then he added, I just want out of this lousy outfit. Guys, have you ever heard the expression, or actually it's part of the Miranda rights, right? You have the right to remain silent. Should Hendrik just shut the heck up? So he doesn't have to say anything here. He has the right to remain silent, but apparently he doesn't have the ability. Right? He just keeps running his mouth. I think we can accommodate you, Frankel said icily, and quickly, too. Just give me a piece of paper. I'm resigning. One moment. Sergeant Zim. Yes, sir. Zim hadn't said a word for a long time. He just stood, eyes front and rigid as a statue, nothing moving but his twitching jaw muscles. I looked at him now and saw that it certainly was a shiner, a beaut. Hendrik must have caught him just right, but he hadn't said anything about it, and Captain Frankel hadn't asked. Maybe he had just assumed Sergeant Zim had run into a door and would explain it if he felt like it later. That's very important that they just said that again. So when Sergeant Zim came in, did Johnny notice that it looked like he'd been hit? Yeah. He said, it might turn into a shiner, right? And I seeing it is. Don't you think Captain Frankel probably noticed it too? But had Zim said anything about Hendrik hitting him? No. Had the captain asked what happened? Did Captain Frankel probably understand what happened before Hendrik said it? Why not? Why didn't Zim say, yeah, he hit me? Why didn't Captain Frankel ask, did he hit you? Guys, they're trying to protect Hendrik. Hendrik's in trouble, and Zim and the captain are both trying to protect him. But they aren't able to protect Hendrik from himself here. He brought up that he popped Zim. How much time we got? We got a few minutes. Captain Frankel says, have the pertinent articles been published to your company as required? Yes, sir. Published and logged every Sunday morning. I know they have. I asked simply for the record. Just before church call every Sunday, they lined us up and read aloud the disciplinary articles out of the laws and regulations of the military forces. They were posted on the bulletin board, too, outside the orderly tent. Nobody paid much mind. It was just another drill. You could stand still and sleep through it. About the only thing we noticed, if we noticed anything, was what we called the 31 ways to crash land. After all, the instructors see to it that you soak up all the regulations you need to know through your skin. The crash landings were a worn-out joke like reveille oil and tent jacks. They were the 31 capital offenses. Now and then somebody boasted or accused somebody else of having found a 32nd way, always something preposterous and usually obscene. Striking a superior officer. It suddenly wasn't amusing any longer. Popping Zim? hang a man for that. Why, almost everybody in the company had taken a swing at Sergeant Zim, and some of us had even landed when he was instructing us in hand-to-hand combat. He would take us on after the other instructors had worked us over and we were beginning to feel cocky and pretty good at it. Then he would put the polish on. Why, shucks, I once saw Shizumi knock him unconscious. Bronsky threw water on him, and Zim got up and grinned and shook hands and threw Shizumi right over the horizon. But there's a difference, right? There's a difference in training combat and striking someone in anger. Hendrik struck him in anger in response to a disciplinary action. What Zim did, knocking him down, was a disciplinary action. What'd I do with the book? There it is. Right there in plain sight. Well, sick. I'm sick. Lots of y'all are sick, so we're not even in here. This is like an illusion. We're not actually at school. We're at home, right? NTI. Again. This is like day 5, I think, isn't it, of NTI this year? Ugh, but it is what it is. So this is linking up with the previous video. We left off on that one somewhere. Ah, yes. He had thrown Shizumi right over the horizon, and we talked about how that's different. Captain Frankel looked around, motioned at me. You, Flash Regimental Headquarters. I did it, all thumbs. Stepped back when an officer's face came on and let the captain take the call. Adjutant, the face said. Frankel said crisply, 2nd Battalion Commander's respects to the regimental commander. I request and require an officer to sit as a court. The face said, when do you need him, Ian? Awfully personal. He clearly knows this is serious. As quickly as you can get him here. Right away. I'm pretty sure Jake is in his headquarters. Article and name. Captain Frankel identified keep wanting to say Heinrich. Good grief. Captain Frankel identified Hendrik and quoted an article number. The face in the screen whistled and looked grim. So you can imagine he heard what this guy was being charged with and went, oh my heavens. On the bounce, Ian. If I can't get Jake, I'll be over myself, just as soon as I tell the old man. Old man is often how you like the commander. So if the commander is male, you could say the old man. Captain Frankel turned to Zim. This escort, are they witnesses? Yes, sir. Did his section leader see it? Zim barely hesitated. I think so, sir. Get him. Anybody out of the way in a powered, or out that way in a powered suit? Yes, sir. Zim used the phone while Frankel said to Hendrik, what witnesses do you wish to call in your defense? Huh? I don't need any witnesses. He knows what he did. Just hand me a piece of paper. I'm getting out of here. All in good time. So, like, it sounds as if he just doesn't even know he did anything wrong. And he wants to resign. Too late for that. In very fast time, it seemed to me. Less than 5 minutes later, Corporal Jones came bouncing up in a command suit, carrying Corporal Mahmoud in his arms. He dropped Mahmoud and bounced away just as Lieutenant Speaksma came in. He said, afternoon, Captain. Accused and witnesses here? All set. Take it, Jake. Recorder on? It is now. Very well. Hendrik, step forward. Hendrik did so, looking puzzled and as if his nerve was beginning to crack. Lieutenant Speaksma said briskly, Field Marshal. No, I'm having a rough. He said briskly, Field Court Martial convened by order of Major F.X. Malloy, commanding 3rd Training Regiment, Camp Arthur Curry, under General Order Number 4, issued by the Commanding General, Training and Discipline Command, pursuant to the laws and regulations of the Military Forces, Terran Federation. Remanding Officer, Captain Ian Frankel, Military Intelligence, assigned to and commanding 2nd Battalion, 3rd Regiment. The Court, Lieutenant Jacques Speaksma, Military Intelligence, assigned to and commanding 1st Battalion, 3rd Regiment. Accused, Hendrik Theodore C., Recruit Private, RP, 7960924. Article 9080, Charge, striking a superior officer, the Terran Federation then being in a state of emergency. They treat it seriously, don't they? The thing that got me was how fast it went. I found myself suddenly appointed as an officer of the court and directed to remove the witnesses and have them ready. I didn't know how I would remove Sergeant Zim if he didn't feel like it, but he gathered Mahmoud and the 2 boots up by eye, and they all went outside, out of earshot. So you can imagine he's just like, with his eyes saying, let's go. Zim separated himself from the others and simply waited. Mahmoud sat down on the ground and rolled a cigarette, which he had to put out. He was the first one called. In less than 20 minutes, all 3 of them had testified, all telling much the same story Hendrik had. Zim wasn't called at all. Lieutenant Speaksma said to Hendrik, do you wish to cross-examine the witnesses? The court will assist you if you so choose. No. Stand at attention and say, sir, when you address the court. No, sir, he added. I want a lawyer. The law does not permit counsel in field courts martial. Do you wish to testify in your own defense? You are not required to do so, and in view of the evidence thus far, the court will take no judicial notice if you choose not to do so. But you are warned that any testimony that you give may be used against you, and that you will be subject to cross-examination. Hendrik shrugged. I haven't anything to say. What good would it do me? The court repeats, will you testify in your own defense? No, sir. The court must demand of you one technical question. Was the article under which you are charged published to you before the time of the alleged offense of which you stand accused? You may answer yes or no or stand mute, but you are responsible for your answer under Article 9167, which relates to perjury. The accused stood mute. Very well, the court will reread the article of the charge aloud to you and again ask you that question. Article 9080, any person in the military forces who strikes or assaults or attempts to strike or assault. Oh, I suppose they did. They read a lot of stuff every Sunday morning, a whole long list of things you couldn't do. Was or was not that particular article read to you? Yes, sir, it was. Very well. Having declined to testify, do you have any statement to make in mitigation or extenuation? Sir? Do you want to tell the court anything about it? Any circumstance which you think might possibly affect the evidence already given, or anything which might lessen the alleged offense? Such things as being ill, or under drugs or medication. You are not under oath at this point. You may say anything at all which you think may help you. What the court is trying to find out is this: does anything about this matter strike you as being unfair? If so, why? Huh? Of course it is. Everything about it is unfair. He hit me first. You heard him. He hit me first. Anything more? Huh? No, sir. Isn't that enough? The trial is completed. Recruit Private Theodore C. Hendricks, stand forth. Lieutenant Speaksma had been standing at attention the whole time. Now Captain Frankel stood up. The place suddenly felt chilly. Private Hendrick, you are found guilty as charged. My stomach did a flip-flop. They were going to do it to him. They were going to do the Danny Deaver to Ted Hendrick. And I had eaten breakfast beside him just this morning. The court sentences you, he went on, while I felt sick, to 10 lashes and bad conduct discharge. Hendrick gulped. I want to resign. The court does not permit you to resign. The court wishes to add that your punishment is light, simply because this court possesses no jurisdiction to assign greater punishment. The authority which remanded you specified a field court-martial. Why it so chose, this court will not speculate. But had you been remanded for general court-martial, it seems certain that the evidence before this court would have caused a general court to sentence you to hang by the neck until dead. You are very lucky, and the remanding authority has been most merciful. Lieutenant Speaksma paused, then went on. The sentence will be carried out at the earliest hour after the convening authority has reviewed and approved the record, if it does so approve. Court is adjourned. Remove and confine him. The last was addressed to me, but I didn't actually have to do anything about it, other than phone the guard tent and then get a receipt for him when they took him away. At afternoon sick call, Captain Frankel took me off orderly and sent me to see the doctor who sent me back to duty. I got back to my company just in time to dress and fall in for parade, and to get gigged for Zim for spots on uniform. Well, he had a bigger spot over one eye, but I didn't mention it. Somebody had set up a big post in the parade ground just back of where the adjutant stood. When it came time to publish the orders, instead of routine order of the day or other trivia, they published Hendrick's court-martial. Then they marched him out between two armed guards with his hands cuffed together in front of him. I had never seen a flogging. Back home, while they do it in public, of course, they do it back of the federal building, and Father had given me strict orders to stay away from there. I tried disobeying him on it once, but it was postponed, and I never tried to see one again. Once is too many. The guards lifted his arms and hooked the manacles over a big hook high up on the post. And then they took his shirt off, and it turned out that it was fixed so that it could come off and he didn't have an undershirt. The adjutant said crisply, "Carry out the sentence of the court." A corporal instructor from some other battalion stepped forward with the whip. The sergeant of the guard made the count. It's a slow count, 5 seconds between each one, and it seems much longer. Ted didn't let out a peep until the third. Then he sobbed. The next thing I knew, I was staring up at Corporal Bronsky. He was slapping me and looking intently at me. He stopped and asked, "Okay now? All right, back in ranks. On the bounce. We're about to pass in review." We did so and marched back to our company areas. I didn't eat much dinner, but neither did a lot of them. Nobody said a word to me about fainting. I found out later that I wasn't the only one. A couple of dozen of us had passed out. So it wasn't fun to watch one of his own, right, get punished that way. But I want to remind you that Hendrik should have known better, A. And then both Sergeant Zim tried to handle it on his own. Hendrik refused. It's like he wouldn't admit that what he had done was wrong, even though he should have known better. They've read this over and over, and he just wasn't listening, apparently. And so Sergeant Zim basically tried to give him a lesser punishment on the spot, and he didn't want it. He wanted to see the commander. So they go to the regimental commander, and he's baffled why it even got to him. Well, it got to him because Hendrik insisted. And then when the regimental commander doled out punishment and it had been forgotten, remember, he looked back down his papers like it's forgotten, it's done. He was just going to have extra duty. I mean, again, a pretty light, more than what Zim would have done, but still relatively light. He still wouldn't let it go. And he blurted out and admitted to doing something even worse than what Zim had accused him of, which is just failing to freeze. And at that point, it's like, whoa, okay, now, again, because of Hendrik's own words, actions first and then words, it had to go up further. And yet we hear that it still wasn't as high as it could have gone. And if it could have gone higher, he would have been hung for it. They take it very seriously, but they didn't take it higher because they don't want to. They didn't want to do this. This type of punishment's extremely rare, and we might think lashes. What is this? The 1800s, but it's a rare punishment. And it's rare because it's so severe. There's a method of thinking, a philosophy that if a punishment is severe enough, and everybody knows this is what can happen to you if you do these things, it prevents that behavior. Shocking, I know. But it doesn't always prevent it, because there's some people that they just don't get it. I don't know why he didn't get it. But they took pity on him, and he ends up alive, at least. Dishonorably discharged. I don't know exactly what that means in their society. It's not going to look good. I guess that's enough said on that. A couple of dozen of us had passed out. Also, I think worth noting that the person that carried out the sentence, that whipped him, that gave him the lashes, was a corporal instructor from some other battalion. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Imposing the justice by someone, I get it. If it was one of their own corporal instructors, they know him, and they're having to carry out this sentence. That's hard on them, but I don't know. Isn't that kind of the point? But the author, making this story up, he says that it was from a different battalion. I mean, I don't know if it would make it that much easier. You're still whipping another human being. Now, it doesn't go into gory details. I don't know what this thing looks like. At some point, you may read accounts of whips that are used and the different designs on the end of them. Some of them are pretty gross. Just disgusting, really. But in any case, it sounds like this was pretty bad. Ted was pretty tough, though. It says he didn't let out a peep until the third of his lashes. And then he sobbed. Pretty grim. A good place to stop, I suppose.